Yo, hey, it's Ronin, man. All right, today I want to talk about learning, and I want to talk about all the different ways and people that you can learn from. I think a lot of people, they tend to, when you get into a certain niche and you start studying something, you tend to study just those people, or you search for a search term like MGTOW, and then you watch MGTOW videos, and you say, "Oh, I love this stuff," right? But the key is obviously study anything that you can, any like a new field, or anytime people have distilled knowledge down to it, like a science in some area, it's very valuable. You should always study that. But at the same time, to really grow, to really be a leader, you need to do it yourself. And that what that means is learning from the sloppy sources out there, right? Real life. And I want to talk about all the things that I've learned from, and I hope this gives you some ideas about what you can do. The way you become it, basically, if you just want to be like everybody else, right? You study what everybody else is studying, right? Now, I'm not saying don't study that. If you want to be a physics, if you want to work in the field of physics or whatever, chemistry, you need to study chemistry. You need to study the standard, what's out there, right? And you should read the classics, right? And should read the latest versions too. But there's so much more, and especially in something like MGTOW, where you're really learning to be a better man. Really, that's in the end, that's what you want to be. You want to be a better man, and you want to be realistic and adjust to what the fuck is going on in real life out there, so that you're not a fool, so that you're not basing your decisions on faulty assumptions or on out of date stuff, right? You want to make sure that you're going, you're going in the right way, and you're open to ideas at the same time as you learn. Obviously, these ideas become part of you. So in a way, they kind of like you become more stable, or you don't change. So it's a blend, right? It's how do you keep learning? How do you decide what is the right path, and then also keep a total open mind for all new information. So today I'm going to talk about all the things I've learned from, and I think you might find this episode interesting. So there's so many different things. I'm going to go just quickly, everything from the guy I talked about before, my mentor Don, who is not perfect, by the way, from an old friend Whitey, from pickup artists, PUAs. I've learned a ton from PUAs, ton. And I've a lot of friends who are PUAs, and I've learned so much from PUAs. So I got to say, if there was one group, I would say the PUAs would be up near the top, just because of their never-ending desire to improve themselves. And I've learned a ton from naturals, like real natural guys who never even heard of pickup. They died before even pickup was the thing, right? I'm 52, right? So I've seen like real naturals where they just rolled through the girls, man. I can't tell you. It was like they rolled through the chicks. And I watched them, and I went out with them. And we went out and picked up girls together, and it was fucking amazing. I cannot tell you how awesome it is. I should do an episode on that, actually. I've learned from young guys. Just recently, got a friend, watching him go out, his confidence. He's 23. You might have heard his voice in some of these episodes. But I mean, just watching him do his thing and watch his open-mindedness to learn, that is just amazing. I love that. Young guys, there are some really amazing guys out there who can teach you some things too, whatever your age is. So keep an open mind for young guys. Next thing is Japanese hosts and touts for the porn industry, or for hosts. Actually, I shouldn't go into it too much. Let me go back, and I'll just go through these one by one. But I'll just quickly say, Japanese hosts taught me a lot. People that are touting for the porn industry in Japan taught me a lot. Of course, MGTOW videos have really opened my mind to different aspects of this whole thing, called being a freaking man, being male, that I never thought of. Just never really, it was out of my vision, and then I've learned so much from MGTOW videos, actually. I learned obviously from the books I really liked, like The Predatory Female, The Manipulated Man, Nice Guys Don't Get Laid. These were the books I read before MGTOW, even before PUA. I was reading those books, and they were part of my life, back in the day. Acting coaches, voice coaches, how to walk. I learned a ton when I went to a gay bar with a friend of mine who's gay. I'm going to tell you about that today. In movies have classic scenes. There's so many good scenes. You see a lot of reality in movies, and that's why people watch movies, because they distill ideas down and they present them. So there's this twisted character who he's a minister, but he's also, into like whatever, gay and S&M or whatever, it's because that kind of character exists. And so there's not that many, but it's like we all have that part of us that's like two sides, right? That's why Hollywood is so amazing, right? Is because they distill these characters down. We don't relate to all of them, but we relate to some of them, right? So that's what's, the guy who tortures the girl in the basement, or the guy who swims down to the bottom of the ocean. There's all parts of this we can relate to, right? So let's go into these one by one, right? I want to talk about, this is actually, now that I'm looking at it now, I'm going to talk about gay bars. This is freaking hilarious, you guys. And I cannot tell you how important this was for me. In the middle of my, I would say, the peak of me out boning chicks, when I was really out there, I had a friend in Tokyo, and he came out as gay. And I used to teach him how to pick up girls, and I always wondered why he wasn't kind of getting it, And then he finally came out, and I was like, it was really cool, because I was like, oh, right, no wonder, right? So I think a lot of guys get into pickup because they basically, I shouldn't say a lot of guys, there's a percentage of guys who get into pickup because they're not good at picking up girls, and they want to pick up girls, but the reality is that they don't want to, right? The reality is that they're gay, right? So it's a 5%, maybe 3%, I don't know what percent of people attracted to PUAs who are actually gay, and that's they come to grips with it. Well, either way, my friend did that, and we're still friends today. But either way, he said to me, I always go out with you and meet girls, like that's what I always do, and but he said I am not interested in girls. So we do this, you come out with me once. So I went out with him to a place in Shinjuku called Nichome, and I was kind of like a little bit scared of this area, like I'd never been even a little bit like interested in being gay. So it was always kind of like, that was like really weird to go with him. Like it was like an area that I lived around. I walked nearby, but I never went inside because it was just too, and it was just too odd for me. Everybody dressed so weird. You see guys in like chaps, and there was just all these things going on. And it just like never really, like I never even walked down the street through that area. And it was different. It was very different. Shinjuku was Nichome was very different than like say the Castro district in Shanghai, in San Francisco, which I went to back in college because it's a place you just go. It's like a tourist site. Nichome wasn't like that. It wasn't welcome to outsiders. It was a very much a closed. Japanese society was very closed back then about being gay, and like that was like secret area. They didn't want you coming there if you weren't gay. That's for sure. It wasn't like, hey, come on in, check it out, take pictures. Here's the drag queens. It wasn't like that at all. It was like, you're not welcome. It's a private club. So I had never been down there. So either way, that one night he took me down there, and I was just blown away by all the characters that I saw. But one thing got me. One thing was really good actually, because I came into this one bar with him, right? And as I walked in, it was dark inside, right? And as I walked in, there was a guy who was over on my left, I remember, and he poked me in the side or the stomach, like just kind of poked me in the side. Nothing sexual. He just poked me, and then he made a joke, and I started cracking up because it was like I just wasn't ready for it because he was kind of hiding. This was his thing, obviously. He knew what he was doing, right? But you'd come in, I came in, and then the boom, next thing I poked and I'm laughing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to be laughing. Like I'm not supposed to be having fun here. But that was it. That was the end of the excitement. But the thing is, what I learned from that is, I know a lot of people say that you should be physical with girls. You should touch them. You should grab their hands. You should touch their shoulders. You should show that you're not just wanting to be a friend. You're interested in them as a woman, right? And so you want to do some kind of touch, whether it's shake hands, could even be a fist bump or a high five, or whatever, putting your hips together, or putting your arm around her, or whatever, something physical. And before that guy poked me in the side, I never understood what it feels like to be on the other side. But when he did it, it was like, whoa, it was like electricity, because not that I was attracted, but it was just like, it was different, right? It was very different than what I had the whole night. Because what happened the whole night is I had been going to these bars with him, and I was kind of like I wasn't really enjoying it. And like guys would like stare at me from across the bar, like with these daggers in their eyes, like, just like stare at me like it's going to melt me down. I'm going to go over to them. And I really realized what it's like to be a girl. Like it was like what it's like to be, stared at. And And then also what it's like to be like joked with and poked, right? Not in a sexual way, obviously, but that really was interesting for me because after that, I wasn't afraid about poking girls. So they're kind of fucking with them, right? Messing with them, right? So I learned a ton from that. That was one small thing, but I tell you that is very important because I think sometimes it's one thing to know something and it's another thing to know it through another channel. So if someone has poked you, it's different. And you realize, oh, okay, this is why I do this, is because it gets the person's attention, and it gets it's some kind of like different. Like other people are too scared to touch anybody, I guess. I guess that's what it is, So if you come up to a woman and you're very nice and you're very soft and you touch her, it's like, oh, okay, this is the guy who touches me, right? Girls are just like, oh, okay, Other guys, they're too scared, or they, walk away, or they stand like a lurking Hulk near me, Or I go to the movies and their 500-pound arm takes like a half an hour to get around me, Whereas like if you just like boom, come up and just touch right away, she's like, hey, this is the guy who touches girls like in a very nice way, and they feel themselves, they feel their body, they feel their emotions, and they say, oh, this feels natural, like this feels good. So it passes their little test. Once you've done that, then you're in a different category than somebody who hasn't done that. So I learned from that. I learned from acting coaches. I had a friend. Now I call him a friend. He went to Juilliard and he rented a room from me once, and so I got to hang out with him quite a bit. And he really taught me a lot about acting. He had an acting school in Hollywood, and he was visiting Asia for like 6 months, and it was really cool. He taught me all about voice. Right now I'm not using his techniques. Now I am more. I'm using my diaphragm. But what he taught me helped me with so many things, right? And actually, when I remember it right now, it helps my voice. It helps my posture. It helps my gesturing. Right now, you can't see me, but I'm gesturing like I wasn't before. I'm more authoritative voice. I don't know if you can hear that, but I feel better. I feel more confident. And that I learned that from an acting coach who was just staying in one of my rooms. And then, he ended up being very friendly, and I was friendly with him. We became friends. And as we went over time, he taught me stuff and about voice, about walking. He was a friend of Val Kilmer. They went to school together at Juilliard. So that was awesome. Let's see. So the predatory female, the manipulated man, I talked about those in different episodes. Nice Guys Don't Get Laid was a book I read back in the early 90s, and that was another book that was kind of like, frying my mind at the time. What did I learn from that is that you could write that title. It sounds stupid, right? But to me, that was something. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to write it. If you say something and you write it, you're legally responsible if you write it. It's different, right? It's completely different. And so writing it's more serious. It's more committed, And Nice Guys Don't Get Laid, when I saw that title and I read the book, I was like, man, I guess it's okay not to be a nice guy, And it wasn't, I don't mean like, obviously you got to read the book to understand what I'm talking about. I can put a link below to Amazon link or something. But the thing is that is not as what is wanted in the market. They don't want women don't want a nice guy, and I think it's easy to jump to conclusions that everybody will just immediately say, oh, they want assholes. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying they don't want nice guys. So that's just something to learn, right? Fish, don't eat fruit salads, right? So and elephants cannot fly. So what do? You have to think about it, right? So nice guys don't get laid, and that's absolutely true. They will get laid by one girl who will take advantage of them. I guess that's a little bit untrue. But in general, it's a very bad strategy, right? Like the guy who jumped out of the airplane with no parachute. He landed on a tree. There was one guy who jumped out of a parachute, landed right on a branch. It was just the perfect strength that he hit it so hard, and it was so strong, but not too strong, that it broke at just the last moment, and he hit the ground and broke his hip and I think his legs. But he lived, right? But that's still not a good strategy, even though it worked. nice guys can get laid, but it doesn't mean it's a good strategy, right? It doesn't mean that you want to live your life with this as a map, right? That's not a good idea. So MGTOW, right? MGTOW videos. What did I learn from MGTOW? I learned a ton. Like I was listening to actually Angry MGTOW the other day, who I didn't originally like, but I'm starting to like him more, listening to his videos and hearing his take on the world, and I starting to enjoy his videos. I've talked many times about Diana Davidson. I think some of her videos are really great, and they've really taught me. I guess it's kind of like nice guys don't get laid confidence thing. Diana as a woman, she puts it out there in a way that men just don't. If you watch her best videos, they're just so powerful. She just absolutely destroys women, and bad women in her videos, and women that aren't good, just like men can be not good, right? She destroys women that aren't good. And these women have never been destroyed before, so that's the difference. Her stuff is awesome. Some of her videos are just like, whoa, So I watch them again and again because they're so good. So there's a ton of MGTOW videos I've gotten stuff from. But I think if you're listening to this now, you're probably listening to MGTOW videos. So just keep looking for different ones. I listen to Howard Dare. I like him. There's quite a few I've listened to over time, and I've gotten bored of them or whatever. So I just keep looking for new ways, new voices, and new episodes. Because maybe one episode's not great, but the other one can be epic, right? Or there might be one sentence in there that's really good, right? So what did I learn? Who else did I learn from? Okay, on the east exit of Shinjuku Station, right, in Tokyo, there's a little walking street, right? And if you ever go there, you'll definitely walk down this street. Very cool. And a little shopping street, and like Tokyo's always got tons of cool stuff. But that street, it used to be, before they outlawed it, it was the number one place to pick up a porn star, a woman who's going to be an actor in porn movies. It was the number one. That street, it's only about less than 100 meters long, or maybe 100 meters, but that little 100-meter street produced more porn than the United States. There was more porn that came out of that street than there was out of the whole United States, with over double the population, 10 million times the size. But Japanese porn is just prolific, and that street is where the touts, the guys who would talk to the girls, would bring in girls. So girls would be shopping, and they'd come up to them and say, hey, what's going on? Hey, would you like to do this? Would you like to be in a movie? Yeah, we're just gonna like, you have to be friendly, kiss, and this and that. They would kind of like start slow, and they would build up and bring the girls in, right? And they were very good. And I was, at the time, this was probably like early 90s. I was watching these Japanese touts approach women, and that's what they did. They were fucking hardcore. They would go straight up to the women, and they were trying to get them into a porn movie, right? So that's like more serious than just boning them, right? That's like way up there, right? So these guys had, and they were talented. These guys, I think the Japanese tout industry is probably hundreds of years old, because watching these guys, it was kind of like watching. I don't know if you've ever seen. There's some shrimp that evolved at the bottom of the ocean, and they evolved next to a deep in the ocean, way too deep for regular shrimp, because there's no sunlight and nothing to eat down there that deep. But the thing is, these shrimp actually live off of a fissure in the bottom of the ocean that is like heated water comes out from basically from the Earth's mantle, right? And so they have somehow they evolved down there, because there's no way they could have swam down there. This is the bottom of the ocean. They look like shrimp, except they're completely clear. They're see-through. And they evolved separately. There's a few situations in the world like that. There was another one where there was some bugs that evolved inside of a cave that had been closed for hundreds of thousands of years. And they found, scientists have found the same thing, like fish or whatever, but evolved in a whole new environment. That's the way I look at the Japanese touts. These guys had no access to English information. They didn't speak English. They didn't read POA. They didn't know anything about it. It was pre-internet. They had their own Japanese, very strong traditions in pickup, and it was really cool to watch. And I remember living there, and like I was, the Western PUA thing was starting, and I remember watching the videos, and I remember thinking I'd go down and watch the Japanese guys, and they were hardcore. The Japanese guys, man, they were very physical. They would just come right in, boom, touching them, high five, just like all over them, grabbing them by the waist, walking with them, joking with them, poking them, doing all kinds of stuff, right? And then getting them to go with them, right? And I was blown away, and I remember the weird feeling, like it's almost like this Western imperialism, but it's this kind of inability to see other cultures, because I never heard anybody else say, I swear to God, I never heard one guy say that he learned from those guys who lived in Japan. They saw them, they knew they were picking up girls, they knew they were good. Anybody with half a brain watched these guys, they were very good. I was the only guy who was watching them and studying them and talking to them, because I was like, man, these guys are good. These Japanese guys, they got it going on. Like they got it. And not only was it, what was interesting for me was that not only did they have it going on, but they also had a very unique take on everything. And so that's the picture you're looking at in this video is Japanese hosts. Now these guys, these motherfuckers, they had two types, right? There was basically touts for the porn industry, and there was also touts for the host industry. So in this picture you're looking at here, this is a host club. So that those girls in the back, they're paying those guys thousands of dollars to drink with them. And I've been around host clubs a lot. I lived in a building with all hosts, and I remember like in the morning seeing these guys like have these girls like standing on the street, like basically like I speak Japanese so I could understand them. They'd be like, the girl's like, aren't you going to take me home? After she had spent all this money on the guy all night, taking him drinking and eating and everything. And this girl was hot. I'm not kidding. This girl was a fucking angel. I mean, really, this girl was so hot. Like, it was just like, my mind was melting. Yeah, but here she is, like, begging this guy to take her home. And he's like, he like blew her off. he was like, I don't remember. I couldn't hear what he said, but it was kind of like, I heard what she said because she was facing me. It was like early in the morning. It was like 5 a.m. That's right. I was taking an airplane that day. That's why I was up so early. I never get up that early. But it was like early morning, sun had just come up, sun just coming up, and I heard them, and he just basically like in some Western movie, the guy just turns and walks away, right? He was like, not tonight, too tired, or something like that, basically. And she was like looking up with these big eyes, she'd spent all this money all night, but he's like, no, another time, babe. It's awesome, right? Watching these guys, they were good, right? You got to open your mind. If you want to be really good, if you want to be like a really interesting guy who keeps improving himself, you got to open your mind. You got to watch these guys and watch different guys, different people, how they live, how they deal with shit, right? I remember another thing I watched a lot was African guys in Tokyo. They were very, very physical too. They almost had physical game. And like there's a lot of Nigerians and in Tokyo, and you would watch them do their pickup, and it was completely different than the Japanese guys. Although they had kind of parts of Japanese, they were more closer to the Japanese guys because some of these guys didn't even speak English. They just spoke whatever they spoke back home, and then Japanese. They spoke Japanese well often because they worked in restaurants and they worked in they weren't like expats. These guys were like poor as hell. But they were pretty good at pickup too. I would say that who is better? Was the Africans better? The expats or the Japanese guys? Who is better at pickup? It really depends because meeting girls in the end is like what they choose. So you can be as good as you want, and it does help. It definitely helps. You can really up your game, and you should in life. But at the end, it's who girls choose. So I'm not going to say which one was better, more successful, but everybody had their skills. And you're better off as a MGTOW, as a guy, as a man, learning from everybody, right? What did I learn from young guys? I learned a ton from young guys. Teaching young guys, telling young guys stuff, showing young guys about, because I spent a ton of time teaching basically MGTOW philosophy back in the 90s. I had those books I was telling you about, Predator for a Meal, Manipulative Man, Nice Days Don't Get Laid. I couldn't get new versions in Tokyo, so I just went to the copy machine and I copied them. And I would put them into a book and I would give them to guys. And then we would read them together. They would read them and then we'd come and talk about it. And that was like, I learned so much from those guys. I was teaching them, but at the same time, they were teaching me because, they were out there doing stuff, and it taught me that every guy's a little different, right? How you are and what you need is different than me. We all have things in common, but there's also things that are unique, and that also my vision is sometimes fucked up. I can't see things, or I can't see things accurately about what I do or what the way the world is, and that's why I got to keep studying. And that's why these young guys who just say, no, I don't agree with that, like, that's not true, and it's like, whoa, this guy's, and then I learn something new. I hear a new perspective. So young guys, hanging out with young guys is I think it's a great thing to do for guys. Don't get stuck. I'm 52, like I said, and it's easy. I see guys at my age who don't hang out with any young people. They hang out with basically people their own age, same music, same this. I say fuck that totally. I hang out with older guys. I got a good friend who's 65 or 64. Another good friend who's 67. And I also hang out quite a bit with guys in their 20s and 30s. And I learn tons from them. So you got to look at different ages if you want to really, I think if you want to have basically like a full life, basically, if you stick with one group, it's from the outside, it's so boring. Like you're fucking boring if you hang out with one group. You just don't learn new stuff. I learned so much. I learned so much from, younger friends, man. Looking back, I probably learned more from younger friends than from older friends. And that's probably because I've already learned the things that I'm going to learn from those. And guys tend to stop learning very young. And they go into this, like, total blue pill life. So you fuck those guys. There's not that much to learn from them. Unless it's about business or something like that, right? But as far as being a man, geez, most guys sold out totally young. There's nothing to learn from them, period. The only thing you can learn from them is you can watch them go through some total tragedy, and then you can say, oh my gosh, that guy was a cool guy, and look what happened to him, right? Look what happened to him. He lost everything, and now he's lost, this cool guy who used to, this and that, and look at him now. That's something you can learn from those guys. Look at his body. Look at the way shape he's in. Look at his mind. Look at what he's doing every day. Look at the quality of his jokes. Look at the way he dresses. Look at the way he acts. Look at the way he thinks about himself. Look at the things that he thinks he's capable of doing, right? What is he, where is he at? That's like the most damning thing. A lot of older guys, where they're at is absolutely settling with bullshit life, and that's the truth. Most guys, and I mean most, I mean like a very vast majority. I don't know percentages. Okay, so let's wrap this up. I'll just go with what I learned from, different kinds of people. I learned from naturals. My friend Chris, he died here in Bangkok. He got cancer and he overdosed on purpose with heroin. And he was one of the most natural, best pickup artists I've ever met in my life. I would say probably he was the best. Yeah, Chris, Too Tall Chris was the best pickup guy I've ever seen in my life. He was an absolute master. I don't even know where his confidence came from. It was just like, it was like something else. He was so confident. I just can't even, like, that guy, man, fuck. Going out with that guy was a total, like, every day was, my mind was just frying going out with him. And you know what I had to overcome with Chris is I had to overcome what I'm putting in this video below, Owen from Real Social Dynamics, is I had to overcome the fact that he was better at picking up girls than me and be okay with that. You know what I mean? He was taller than me. He was cooler than me. He was better at picking up girls. He was just smoother, He had all these things, And I suppose I had some things over him, and I know that he did look up to me in some ways. But I had to accept that the things I really cared about, he was better than me. And I think that's what you have to get over if you want to grow, You can't just, like, if it's human nature. I just watched the video below of Owen. It's epic. This is a really great video. I highly recommend watching this video. Really, I'm serious. Like, watch this afterwards. It's so good. And it's not just one thing. The guy, Owen, just goes through so many awesome things in this video. This has got to be one of his best videos. Because some of his videos are terrible. Just rants forever. But this one, oh man, this one is like required viewing, and required learning, right? And also required growing, Because I always have this challenge. It's like, can I not allow myself to fall into jealousy and holding people back? Can I always allow my friends to grow at the level away from me, right? Or whatever they're going to do. Allow them and encourage them, and to find people who are ahead of me. That's what he didn't talk about in this video, but find people who are actually better than me at stuff, and to be okay with it, and to learn from them, and to put myself down where I am the student and I am learning from this amazing guy, right? Which is not easy. It's not easy for a lot of guys. It's not easy for me. Every time I have to it's like a muscle. Every time I have to kind of pick myself up and say, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to encourage that guy to go and leave and do his thing. I'm going to encourage my friend to get on TV. Because he has a chance to be on TV. I'm going to encourage him to get out there in this job that I know he's going to get tons and tons of chicks, and it's not fair or whatever. It doesn't matter. He's my friend. I'm going to encourage him to get out there and really, almost bathe in the fact that he's going to get out there and have an easy life, with girls and money. It's like these things come up, and you have to, if you want to be a good man, if you want to be a real man, you got to not just allow, you have to encourage your friends to kick ass above you. That's the thing. Above you. Not in every field, right? But in a lot of fields. And this is what happens. This is the tough part, guys. It isn't easy. It's not easy. It might be easy in many ways, but there's going to be a challenge where you're going to have a difficulty with some guy that you're kind of somewhat, maybe jealous of, or, envious of something he has. Maybe he's super wealthy, or maybe the guy's an NBA star, or he's a movie star. I don't know what, whatever it is for you. It might be some just very handsome guy, right? It might be some guy who's super smart, has, and just has insane money. There's all these different things, but how you make your life better is by hanging out with these guys. And the only way you can hang out with guys is if you're a good friend. And if you're trying to pull them down, you can't be a good friend. So if you want to have good friends, if you want to have guys who are better than you as friends, who can teach you stuff, who can bring you into new areas of life, they know the difference between, I call them 3-inchers, but somebody who's like a 3-incher is somebody who's jealous and kind of holding people back. They know the difference between 3-inchers and confident, helpful friends, and you want to be that. You want to be that. If you want to hang out with the kind of guys I'm talking about, you got to be that, right? What did I learn from PUAs? PUAs taught me so much, like I said before. Oh, man, so much. The video below is a perfect example. I can tell you this. I had difficulty studying PUA because I would say I'm a bit of a natural, where easy to meet girls. I had started my sexual experiences very young. And the thing is a lot of guys, they don't have any, I guess, what do you call it? A lot of PUAs, to put it straight, are not that cool guys when they start. And they're learning to be cool guys, right? So if you are a cool guy, just kind of naturally, just confident, you just do your thing. It seems very weird to study these guys who are naturally not confident, naturally not cool, and they're trying to be cool, and they're trying to study to be cool, right? It's not easy for a guy to say, hey, I want to learn from that guy. But what is there to learn from those guys? There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn, man. I tell you, there is a shit ton to learn. One thing is the lack of ego. They're able to accept the fact and to admit the fact that they're not good at something, that they're not funny, that they dress terrible, that they present themselves poorly. They're able to take a videotape of them, say, approaching women and doing terrible and getting blown off, and then playing it to their friends and saying, hey, what did I do wrong? You got any ideas? They have the guts. They have the guts. PUAs have the guts to get in there and try to confront something that is in a sense, is kind of the most embarrassing thing. The inability of a man to get a female partner. There can't be anything more closer to the male, psyche than that, right? Not being enough of a man for the woman, right? Geez, these are heavy things, right? PUAs, man, they're just hey, I'm not good at this, and I want to learn. I'm good at that, I'm not good at this, and I want to learn from guys who are good at it, and I admit it, and I'm not good at this, and they look at themselves super honestly. So when they finish, when PUAs, they go out, when they first start going out, they come back at night and they take notes. They say, did this, here was the result, here's what she said, approach this girl, instead of like most people, what they do, just kind of like compulsive gamblers, you ask them, hey, did you win today? They'll say, oh yeah, I'm ahead. And then you wonder why they always don't have any money. It's because they're losing, and they're just telling you about one time that they bet and they won. Most guys are like that with women. They get one girl or whatever, and they're confident that, hey, I'm the man. I'm good with girls. And they don't even look at the fact that every single time they go out, they don't approach anybody. They're like a fucking drone out there staring at people, not talking to anybody, not doing anything. And they don't even want to look at guys who are doing stuff because that would make them look embarrassed. That would make them look bad. They're going to uncool clubs, wearing uncool clothes with uncool friends, and not talking to anybody, and just sitting there sipping their beer like an idiot. Or they're in McDonald's or they're in a restaurant and they're not talking to any girls. They're not getting any phone numbers. They're not pulling any girls out of there. They're not making any new girlfriends. They're not having a good time. They're not being social. And they somehow don't want to even look at people who are doing that because it's just too scary. It's like, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm not good enough? What if I can't change? What if they know about me? It's like there's a lot of fear, right? And that's the thing, is somebody who studies something like this, MGTOW, PUA, MRA, this is like serious shit. And I would say this is the one thing I see in MGTOW that I don't like, is that a lot of guys don't try to improve themselves. So what I mean is, a woman's reaction depends on who you are. Okay? So, and I don't mean like who you are, your DNA. I mean like how you're acting, the way you act, the way you be, your being, right? So if you watch this video, Owen, like I said at the bottom, Owen goes out there and he talks to girls in a confident way, and he just kills it. And then he takes down his charisma, takes down his voice, takes down his dominance, and then he gets also owned. So, like that is just like fucking what a lesson. What a fucking lesson, right? And, I just blown away because it's one thing to be like a not very good woman, not very confident, and then to learn to be good, but then to go out and then to go back to being unconfident on purpose to record girls basically tearing you a new asshole. That's just so ballsy. I love it. I freaking love it. This is the kind of shit I just love. I love to watch, right? Let's see. So that's about it. I went to my mentor, Dawn. If you go back to my mentorship video, you'll learn all about that. But there I go. There you go. Like, learn from as many things as you can. Movie scenes, last thing. I was going to mention some movie scenes, but I think just search MGTOW movie scenes, and on Reddit there's a ton of like different scenes you can watch, and all those scenes will teach you something valuable. They will all teach you something. They'll show you something, right? But I think more important than that, I would watch those because they're short and they're worthwhile. But more important than that is to pay attention to women, what they say, And I'll just say one last thing. I met this woman on Friday night, and she was talking to her friend, and she said what she basically did was she stole her husband. She divorced her husband, right? And he had some valuable thing. She didn't say what it was, something super valuable. And she had not given it back to him. And the courts had obviously given him half her money and all this stuff. But there was this one thing that she was supposed to give back to him. That was like by law. She has to give it back to him. So he was flying into town, and he was going to get that thing and then leave. And she was telling her friend, I already, sold it, for drugs or something. So she had basically got rid of this one thing that she's supposed to give back to the guy. And this valuable thing, she had sold it for drugs, right? So when I heard her say that, I was observing her from a MGTOW perspective. And I was just like totally non-judgmental, just listening to her. And then she said basically like, she started justifying it right away. She said, I was supposed to like do this, so I have to like, when he comes into town, I'm going to have to face it with him and then maybe eventually pay him back, she said, right? Maybe eventually, right? If you're a debt collector, the words maybe and eventually mean that you're not going to get paid, right? That's what maybe eventually means. Especially coming from a woman in this case where she sold it for drugs. I mean, maybe eventually, yeah, okay, right. She's definitely going to pay him back, right? She's not, right? So what did I learn from that? I watched her face, and then she started to say after that, she started to say like things like, let's see, I was in a tough time in my life. I was confused. it was tough. The whole thing was tough. We were in China. She said I guess they lived in China or something. And I was listening to this thing, and I was just going, man, taking no responsibility, right? So you can also learn from just watching women talk. Just watch women talk in real life, and then just take a snapshot. Maybe you can even record it with the audio recorder, and then go back and listen to it and think about it. So even better than movies is like real life movie scenes, right? And that was an epic one there. And then there was another woman listening, right? She was listening, and then she was just like, yeah, of course, yeah. It was a tough time. The one thing you have to give back to me, you're not going to give back to me. You sold it. Oh, okay, all right, yeah. They were kind of like, all the women were kind of like, yeah. Instead of like, actually there was more than one woman, yeah. But instead of like people going, what the fuck is wrong with you, bitch? You got all his money or most of his money, and then you can't even give him back the one thing that he is supposed to get back. I don't know what it was, but it's like this one thing you can't even like just give it back to him. You have to like go and sell the thing. It's like, the women, nobody called her on it. Nobody even, they just kind of looked like men just take it in the ass. That's basically what the look. It's like, yeah, he's just going to have to take it in the ass, because all those women knew that he was not going to sue her, because that's what he could do. Because that was in the contract, right? The divorce contract. He could sue her and force her to pay, but the chances of that, as we all knew listening to the story, were freaking zero. The guy's going to just bite the bullet, try to make the best he can of his life, and just move the fuck on. Because if he sued her, all of a sudden, all the manginas, everything's going to jump out of the fucking closet saying, oh, what are you doing? This poor woman, she was a drug addict or something, It's like, hey, we all have problems, right? We all go through shit, and we have to make amends for the shit we did, right? Especially something like this, right? When you already got a bunch of money, so she had money to do whatever she needed to do, right? So she could have just taken the money that he had given her, go buy the thing that whatever it was, and just give it back to him, right? Or start paying him back with his own money, right? Tell him, hey, she could have done this. She could have said, one of the women could have said, hey, isn't he paying you alimony? Why don't you just tell him, don't pay for however many months, that thing cost, right? Whatever he's paying her, $1,000 a month, don't pay for if it's $100,000, don't pay for 100 months, right? Okay, there's 2 years, right? 100 months, right? So, no, nobody thought of that. Nobody said that. Nobody even thought that. Everybody was like, he's going to take it in the ass. She got all his money and she got whatever that valuable thing was. And nobody even thought to say anything. So these are the things in life you can learn from the most. And so if you have any ideas like that, if you see things in life, comment below. I'd love to hear it, because this is the kind of shit this is like learning in real life. This is more important than books. This is like learning from your mom, learning from your sister, learning from your wife, learning from your girlfriend, learning from, that sweet girl that works at Starbucks that you thought was such an angel, and turns out she's a total cunt, and you have a difficult time accepting that, right? You have to accept reality here, right? That's what we do. We accept reality about the world. We accept reality about ourselves. That's what I do. That's what I try to do every single day. That actually is one of my main focuses, is finding truth. I want to find truth about the world, find truth about myself, and then accept that truth, even if it sounds really harsh. It doesn't sound like something I want to accept. It's like, it's true. Okay. How can I integrate this? How can I not run away from this? What other options have I not thought of that would keep me from being despondent about this thing? And there's always something. If you look on, there's always something. There's maybe life doesn't have any meaning because there's no God. But have you thought about, doing yoga on the top of a mountain? Have you thought about feeling, the world from a different perspective and enjoying? Have you thought about studying science and biology and watching plants from a different perspective, from not just from looking at them from the outside, but from the inside? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And there's other things that can give your life meaning if you just look for it. If you run away from it, you say, oh, no meaning? Oh, then life is terrible. I can't do that. I can't think that. No, you can think that, because reality is the best drug there is. Reality is the number one drug. I recommend it to everybody. Reality is awesome, because in the end, you live a very light life. Like that movie, The Unbearable Lightness of Being. You're so light because you're not covering anything up. You're not running away from anything. You just got it, it's just clean, man. It's just clean. and you're open to change too. So you're not like set in your ways, right? So that's my take on learning and life in general. So thanks so much for listening. If you have time, please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Share this with your friends if you like this Ronin Man podcast. I've been working hard on this. My phone got stolen, so I'm using audio again. But I'll go back to video when I get the Galaxy S8 when it comes out. So thank you very much, and I really appreciate this community. So thank you for being part of it. Yep, take it easy.